All right, I think we can start. We have a good number of attendants, so welcome everybody to our Digital Humanism lecture series. I think we have a super interesting topic today. Therefore, without further ado, I will hand over to today's moderator, Susan Winter. Many of you know her. She's Associate Dean for Research at the College of Information Studies at the University of Maryland, has contributed to research in socio-technical systems in various ways. She's acting deputy director of the Office of Cyber Infrastructure at NSF, and she was one of the co-editors of our proceedings of the very first digital humanism research conference we had in Vienna last year, where we had a great collaboration, and therefore, Susan, I hand over to you to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dario Guarascio, who is currently an associate professor of economics and innovation policies at the Department of Economics and Law of the Sapienza University of Rome, also an external affiliate of the National Institute for Public Policy Analysis. His research covers the economics of innovation, digitalization and labor markets, European economics and industrial policy. He's widely published in international journals, and is also associate editor of the journal Structural Change and Economic Dynamics, Journal of Industrial and Business Economics, and Economia and Lavoro. Oh, my Italian pronunciation is terrible. I apologize. Former member of the commissions of the Ministry of Labor and Social Policies for the reform of social safety nets, the promotion of women's employment, and the regulation of digital labor platforms. I am particularly excited to hear what Professor Guarascio has to say. Because although I am the Associate Dean for Research at the University of Maryland, most people don't know that I grew up in Silicon Valley. And actually, the Apple computer came out, the first Apple I, in July of 1976. I graduated high school in 1977. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were actually at the high school that was 3 miles away from the one I attended, and were our rivals. And they created it to empower people. This was when you had Hewlett-Packard, you had IBM, they were all mainframes. And so they were trying to give the power of computing to the people. That was behind the homebrew idea. And I've seen it transform from empowering people to empowering business. And recently I've been getting the feeling that it's actually morphed again into empowering the state and empowering the military. And then we invited Dario to give a talk, and I went, oh yeah, how did this happen actually? I think that this is particularly appropriate. The talk today on the military digital complex, digital technologies, and the New World Disorder. And I also have heard from Professor Guarascio that he's got a book out on digital imperialism that's in Italian, but hopefully will soon be translated into English. So without further ado, I'm looking forward to hearing the talk this evening. And we have about 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll have questions and answer afterwards. So take it away.
Okay, so many thanks indeed, Susan, for your kind words and introduction, much appreciated. And of course, thanks Stefan, Hannes, and all the organizers of such great series of seminars. I would not like to, let's say, lose time, and so no, let me perhaps like this. No, okay. So, hope you can all see my slides.
Okay, full screen, unfortunately.
Not full screen?
Perfectly in the dry run.
So you can see it, right?
No, it's the Zoom screen. It's not your slides, it's your Zoom.
Okay, so I don't know why before we were able to see it. Let me see. Okay. No. Why? Why you can see it? So now you're seeing my Zoom screen, but what about if I now open my slides? You still cannot see it? Can you see it right now?
No.
No, we have Zoom.
Looks like
must first
sharing
open your
screen.
slides.
It looks like you're sharing the screen and not the application.
Yeah, but I don't know why before when I got into the options for sharing, there was also my slides to be chosen. Now, not anymore. Don't know why.
I did see it. It's in a separate screen on a separate tab.
Okay.
Maybe we try again.
Yeah, let me see. Sorry, but this is also due to this hacker attack because I'm using not my computer. Okay. Now I can see it. Okay.
Looks
now?
good. Yeah, and now
Wonderful.
go full screen.
Okay. Many thanks and sorry for this initial inconvenience. So, as anticipated by Susan, the title of my talk is The Military Digital Complex, Digital Technologies and the New War Disorder. Indeed, this sums up a quite long trajectory of research around the power of large digital platforms, the relationship with the state, and in particular, the connection with the military apparatus as a important driver of their power. So let me briefly sketch my outline. First of all, I will provide some words about the context where we are in and the major phenomena which are behind the focus of my talk. Then I will spend few words about how the literature on technological paradigms and technological trajectories can help us understanding what's going on by looking at how civilian and military priorities shaped in different ways and with different intensity the evolution of the ICT paradigm over time and why this matters for the economics, the social, and also the technological domains. Then I will sketch the political economy of what we have defined the military digital complex. And once defined the political economy of the military digital complex, I will dig into the US case, which of course is the most relevant because as Susan has underlined, this is where Silicon Valley, the big tech, the internet in the end brought about. And of course, the things I'm going to discuss are at least in the US, even if they're out. And then I will also look at what can be interpreted at least partly as the counterpart of the US military digital complex, which is the Chinese military digital complex, which to certain extent is very similar, as we will see, but there are also some very important differences and discontinuities that should be highlighted. And finally, I would like to discuss some of the major policy implications that would be good also to discuss with you. So, few words on the context. From a macroeconomic and structural point of view, we can say that we switched from phase of, so to say, endless globalization, the expansion of multinational pressure of growth globally, at least slowing down dramatically. And what we are seeing is conflicts from an economic point of view, so trade conflicts, technological conflicts, and of course also actual conflicts, starting with the Ukraine-Russian war that we are all still unfortunately seeing. But what is driving such a dramatic change, I argue, is in two digital complexes. In the US, based in China, characterized by the convergence between the strategies of big tech on the one hand and the state on the other, and its military apparatus in particular. And the fight is mostly around, of course, controlling markets, but also technologies and critical raw materials that are crucial to empower such technologies. From a political economy viewpoint, we have, however, another important phenomenon that needs to be highlighted, which is the conjunction of surveillance capitalism, as Shoshana Zuboff defined it, which is the business model upon which digital platforms base their economic power, but also their ability to control economy, to development more broadly, and digitalization of war. So not only the fact that more and more conflicts are popping out around, but that these conflicts are of a rather different nature, because digital technologies are becoming more and more important, changing the shape of war and of how military activities are carried out. And to answer the question that Susan posed at the beginning, I would say that in order to understand what's going on and how internet and the digital domain is changing more in general, I think that some of the contribution of the classics and some pieces of economics and political economy literature, and here I mention Hobson, Iffelding, Lenin, so some major authors of the imperialism theory tradition, can be
So, Dario, sorry for briefly interrupting you. Maybe you could switch off the camera. The connection is a bit unstable.
And we keep seeing you freeze.
Let's see. Are you still with us?
Identify some key aspects in that felt by
Dario?
or I don't try to can you hear me?
Yes, maybe
Yeah,
you switch
can you
off
hear
the
me?
camera.
Yeah,
Maybe.
no, but I would try to change my connection perhaps, because sometimes at home it could be quite unstable, so I can try to use my phone.
Okay,
This
let's give it a try. Yes.
This can help. Let me see if I can do something here. Okay, sorry for this, but okay, let me see. To go on like this. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. But not now anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's try again. Sorry, but I mean here it can be.
No worries. Maybe it's the topic which makes the technology be a bit.
Okay, let me see, because now again I don't know why. So am I still sharing my screen? No. Or yes? Now yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so let me. Okay, let me jump to some stylized facts. If you can still follow me.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as I said, this is a turning point. We are witnessing a fundamental structural changes. So the first one regards, as I said, the slowing down of globalization. So here I picked up just one of the indicators that we can use to witness to highlight this, and this is just the substantial reduction of the FDI flows over global GDP. Second stellate fact, we can think that from an economic viewpoint, we are also observing a kind of new warfare regime in saying that military expenditure is growing globally, of course, paralleling the number of conflicts and the intensification of conflicts that we are witnessing around. And this is data stemming from the CPRI database, just showing how in many contexts, and of course, Ukraine and the Israel data are, or the Russian and other figures are those showing the more substantial growth, but we can basically observe this more or less globally. And on the corporate side, we can also see a substantial growth in value, both from a financial point of view, so market capitalization, but also, of course, in profits of corporations operating in the military and defense industry. On the other hand, this is, of course, not new, but it is still growing in terms of relevance as a phenomenon. We have a kind of polarized platform world in saying that big tech, digital platforms are becoming economic entities which has sizes beyond that of nation states. I will show you a figure in a minute, but also this is a dynamics that is very much polarized from a geographical and geopolitical viewpoint. So this is a graph just showing how the dynamics is very much a dynamics which poses the US vis-a-vis the Asian, China-based, basically digital ecosystem. And just to have a sense of how big tech and large digital platforms are entities characterized by an unprecedented economic, and then we will see also economic power. This is a graph that compares market capitalization of US-based big tech with the real GDP of Germany and Japan, just to have a measure of their size. Now, what we are witnessing is also a change or an evolution, better, of the ICT technological paradigm. As Susan mentioned at the beginning, we observed the early stages of the internet in a very different context and with very different promises. In general, we can rely on the evolutionary literature and on the history of technologies just to identify the fact that the dialectical relationship between military and civilian priorities is something that in different ways has shaped the evolution of the ICT technological paradigm, characterizing markets, affecting markets, institutions, and ways also the relationship between corporations and the state is shaped. So we can identify major discontinuities over time with the 60s, when demand for military electronics has been key for the developments of the ICT paradigm in its very early stages, and the objectives regarding aerospace, nuclear system after the Sputnik shock. In the 80s, as mentioned before, things started changing also because there has been some shocks concerning the lowering costs of chips, electronics, and communication technologies, allowing for new applications and opening up of new market opportunities. And so lots of investments and new ventures oriented very much towards commercial and civilian objectives and priorities. And this is also the phase during which, due to the softening, so to say, of the Cold War, and in general the relative reduction of military priorities, apart from the Star Wars episode, the internet starts becoming a more civilian and then commercial oriented initiative. In this context, and in the 1990s in particular, the development of the network and then of the internet contributed to the rise of the platform model that then in the early 2000s start accelerating in a fundamental way. What are the major characteristics? So tailored services, as we know, the commodification of personal data, new activities and applications, but from an industrial point of view, we have also a huge dynamic of concentration in markets driven mostly by network effects and winner-take-all mechanism. Also, knowledge and innovation networks and technological competition started to change in this phase. Why? Because platforms are at the center of ecosystems where technological innovation is mostly let's say, siphoned out by entities that dominate the industry, namely the larger platforms, which basically are in the condition of exploiting new knowledge and new ventures, and in many cases, technological competition strengthen their positions rather than challenging it. Even if at the early stages of the internet, most of the narrative and of the discourse was about empowering individuals, abating barriers, and in general making the free operation of markets and the free access to information as a way to ensure not only growth but even empowerment throughout the globe. Military needs and security needs, since the Iraqi and then the Afghanistan wars, start becoming more and more important. So under the carpet, not really advertised, but a gradual convergence between the military apparatus and the strategies of big tech start becoming an important phenomenon. And so military priorities start becoming crucial in procurement contracts by the Department of Defense and in general by military entities, and research and innovation in the digital domain started emphasizing surveillance, remote control, and autonomous system, manipulation of information, and social control. Now we are seeing how the digitalization of war, and so the growing importance of digital technologies on the battlefield is becoming paramount. And we can identify at least 3 sets of, let's say, application domains where digital technologies are now crucial and attracting lots of investment, which is decision-making, so battlefield awareness, kill chains, and efficiency to be, let's say, transferred also in these domains. Of course, autonomous weapons and all the technologies related to surveillance and cyber wars. We can identify the key elements of what we define the political economy of the military digital complex. So on the one hand, we have the big tech, so digital oligopolies that are able to control market and to attract and to accumulate an unprecedented amount of economic resources. On the other, the military apparatus, which more and more is in need of the technologies, the knowledge, and infrastructure that are controlled and developed by these corporations. And so what we can say is that, first of all, after a phase of apparent detachment, because as I said, the relationship between the two domains started growing even since the early 2000s, yet what we are seeing now is that military expenditure and R&D are becoming more and more important for profit accumulation of digital corporations. And in this respect, some of the theories, like the monopoly capital theory by Baroness Weezy and other co-authors, seems to be back to the fore. When why? Well, because military expenditure becomes a way out of stagnation tendencies and under-consumption dynamics, which characterize an economic phase made of conflicts, uncertainty, growing inequalities, and characteristics of the digital domain, which to a significant extent reduce the opportunity to have strong demand dynamics, which can, let's say, stimulate growth, and so reduces also profit opportunities for corporation. In this kind of context, the relationship with the military becomes more and more important. But from a technological and infrastructural point of view, the mutual dependency is characterized on the one hand by the need of the state of having big tech supporting with their idiosyncratic capabilities, infrastructure, and technologies. On the other hand, big tech and digital corporations more in general need the state because they need support when they have to penetrate in international markets and they are facing hostile regulation. They need to circumvent hostile regulation, for example, concerning the access to data, and now they need the growing flows of public expenditure related in particular to military objectives. Joining battlefields, as the big tech are doing, is very important. Why? Because this offers unique opportunities to develop and refine new technologies in contexts lacking regulation, but is also a way to strengthen their bargaining power vis-a-vis within the military digital complex, and in general they strengthen their position, making their counterparts, even governments, I think at my government in particular, for example, dependent on their technologies and infrastructure that in most cases are provided as infrastructures as a service, so as a subscription model kind of provision of these services and infrastructures. And then there is a reshaping of the old military-industrial complex, in particular concerning industrial and innovation policy. Why? Because in the digital phase that we are living, technology transfer is growingly important from the civilian and commercial domain towards the military rather than vice versa. This means that big tech, which are let's say in the right place to develop new application, to identify the most promising, and also to transfer them at scale towards the military domain, become more and more important in the broad industrial and innovation policy domain. Let me go fast because I think that I have, I don't know, 7-8 minutes. Just tell me how much time I have, so I will, let's say,
But if I say 8, you can take 10. How's that?
Okay,
No
great.
more.
Great. Okay, we'll go fast. So, having said that, let me dig into the two cases, so the US and the Chinese case, trying to provide some, let's say, empirical elements to support the arguments that I try to sketch. First of all, in the US case, we have an original linkage because the internet and the competitive advantage that the big tech obtained in the 90s and early 2000s is related to a military project and to a decade-long R&D military project, which is the internet. However, the first phase of development of this big tech is mostly related to civilian applications. And so we can envisage a kind of pendulum-like relationship where you have phases where military R&D and military objectives are crucial, and other phases during which learning and incremental innovation and growth happens mostly in the commercial domain. But the relationship never fades away, and as we are seeing right now, things can come close and strategies can converge very rapidly when needed. As I said, the state needs big tech, and in the US we are seeing this very well right now, with Palantir providing lots of the technologies that are used also for internal repression with the ICE thing, etc. But in general, we can say that big tech not only monopolize key assets and technologies, but also develop idiosyncratic competencies that are unique, that are hardly transferable and replicable, and so that make these entities so crucial in the relationship with the state. These are just some data on submarine cables and on cloud technologies, just to show how dominated these sectors are, and we have to think how crucial these technologies are for the operation of the economy and also to pursue military objectives. Big techs are crucial within innovation ecosystems, as I've already mentioned, and attract a largest chunk of top skills in these domains. From a political economy and security viewpoint, these entities are also crucial because they are de facto eyes and ears of the government, both at home, carrying out activities that are related to security and law enforcement, as we know, and managing data which are crucial for these purposes, but also abroad, with respect to governments which are within the sphere of influence, but also vis-a-vis, for example, global South economies, giving rise to what Michael Kuet called digital colonialism. We can look at data to see how military procurement contracts are becoming crucial sources of profits for big tech. And we have several publications where we have analyzed in detail how most of the contracts, which are not only relevant for their economic value, are crucial also because they mean delegation of critical activities and development of critical capabilities in the military, security, and defense domain for this same group of companies. And as I said, there is a fundamental change also in the way industrial and innovation policies are carried out, with the big tech becoming crucial actors. And this is just one paradigmatic example, which is the Defense Innovation Unit, which is now based in Mountain View. The director is Doug Beck, so former vice president of Apple. And the aim of this new well-funded entity is, in fact, to identify applications in the commercial domain, to identify promising startup, and to transfer at scale new prototypes and applications that can be useful for the military. There is an increase in the share of the defense budget dedicated to frontier digital technologies, most of which are in the hands of the big tech. And what is again at the forefront, as in the 60s, as at the times of Eisenhower's military digital complex, is the revolving doors dynamic. So many managers or members of big tech going towards military agencies and institutions related to the defense and to the military domain, and vice versa. And this is all, of course, crucial both for competencies related consideration and for networks of relationships. I already mentioned the direct participation of big tech to battlefield. Here you have a list of the activities that the major US-based big tech are carrying out in Ukraine. Most of those are related to cloud, to counter cyber threat activities. Amazon moved most of the Ukraine's IT infrastructure into its servers. And SpaceX, we all know, that provides via Starlink connection. Why this is crucial? Well, because this strengthens the power of big tech within the military digital complex and vis-a-vis the state. And we all know the role of big tech also in the Gaza's conflict, in particular concerning AI technologies. Why big tech involvement in warfare activities matters? Well, as I said, because this strengthened their position due to the learning element and to the opportunity of developing incremental innovation that then can spill over to the commercial domain, representing important sources of profits. Let me talk other 4 minutes to say something about what happens on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, because by analyzing the Chinese digital ecosystem, and by the way, China is the only country that, relying on a combination of planning, industrial policy, and calibrated openness, managed to build a digital ecosystem that is comparable in terms of size and of relevant of the local big tech to the US one. And I'm talking about Alibaba, Baidu, Huawei, Tencent. So these companies hold a huge techno-economic power in terms of economic size, in terms of control and development of infrastructure and technologies. And even here, we can identify a mutual dependency between the Communist Party and the local big tech. For example, the Chinese big tech are crucial actor in the Digital Belt and Road Initiative, through which China is building its own sphere of influence and building economic and technological dependency relationship that are crucial for its foreign expansion. But of course, Chinese big tech are important also because are pivotal within the local military digital complex, as they participate and are major players of lots of important projects involving arms producers and key state-owned companies involved in the development of arms and of military related technologies. So big tech controlling key dual infrastructure and supporting the Communist Party in expanding its sphere of influence, but also lots of big tech military joint ventures aimed at digital dual technologies. And then you have also an institutionalization of the military digital complex. For example, you have that the CEOs of the Chinese big tech are within some important components of the Communist Party board that are aimed at defining industrial and innovation policy, and the Chinese big tech are mentioned in the Chinese Defense in the New Era document. Let me just say that even if there are lots of similarities, there are also huge differences, in particular related to the fact that the Chinese government is able to, let's say, put under control and to use tools to avoid local big tech to, let's say, behave in a way that is not aligned with the party and the government major strategies, even in that context, there are some relevant contradictions related to the fact that these corporations are, of course, the most internationalized, have a systemic size, and can also play around with the contradictions and the conflicts that are within the party and the Chinese government more broadly. So, final words on the implications of such a let's say complex dynamics and developments that I tried to sketch during my presentation. So the first point is that the clash between the military digital complexes is something that is shaping, and I would say in a concerning way, the evolution of contemporary capitalism, both fueling conflicts, because of course dominating digital industries and markets is a crucial objective that is putting now China and US one against another, even if with lots of contradictions, but also because, as we are seeing, war is a fundamental source of profits and of innovation for these corporations. On the other hand, we have that Europe as an area, and many other areas in this respect, is tremendously weak in terms of digital capabilities, of infrastructure, and so is facing a huge technological dependency that adds to the social and economic problems that we are facing in a context of growing conflicts, and so of uncertainty and of continuous emergencies that reduce the scope for well-designed policies. In all that, we have that these developments are also related to an evolution of capitalism that is still characterized by growing inequalities, also by social conflicts that are very concerning, also within states, as we are seeing, for example, in the US. And in this respect, we should look at social conflict that is now identifying and targeting the conjunction of monopolistic power from an economic viewpoint and its implication on labor and socially more in general. And the convergence of this with military and security priorities, and also the convergence of strategies between the military and the large corporations is something that could be identified as, so to say, an element of hope in terms of awareness and opportunities to push towards a more a stronger awareness about these developments and the risks that this entails. Because of course there is also an element of, let's say, hijacking the evolution of the digital paradigm in a direction that is more and more that of surveillance, social conflicts, and military tools, which are instrumental to the moment, but that can determine huge social cost and reduce the resources directed towards an alternative use and development of the same technologies, because of course innovation is political and the direction of research and innovation is not given, but depends on the choices that are made. And so I would say the space for democratic discussion and deliberation around research, innovation, and technological choices. So sorry for being so long and for the, let's say, technological problems. And I hope that once I turned off the camera, you could hear me. You could hear me well.
It worked great. Yes, thank you so much. Very, very interesting talk. I'm looking to see if there are questions from the audience. I'm seeing a lot of applause. I'm not seeing questions yet. George, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Unmute myself first. Thank you, Susan. You mentioned the Eisenhower 1971, I believe, farewell address, where he coined the term military-industrial complex. At the end of that paragraph, he says something like, "Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can assure that security and liberty can prosper together." And I think your talk contributed significantly to having an alert and knowledgeable citizenry, for which I thank you. Now, the question is about Europe and your last, almost last. There is a lot of talk now in the current evolving geopolitical or ego-political context that that says that Europe is trying to create the conditions for a so-called digital sovereignty, which is a noble goal. Given what you said about the importance of the military industrial complex dynamics driving digital technology development in the big tech and the rest, both in the US and in China, is it realistic to believe that Europe can build digital sovereignty in the absence of this dynamics?
Okay. Do you want me to reply question by question, or?
Yes, please. Okay,
very, very briefly, because I would like to leave room for other questions. But thanks, because this was a fundamental and great question. So, well, my first answer would be not so realistic if we look at how much we lag behind in terms of infrastructure, of technology, and also how difficult would be to gain autonomy and so sovereignty in a context of poor cooperation as the one that we are in right now. However, we have to say that Europe is also in a position of exploiting some elements of strength. First of all, regulation, even if alone is not enough, Europe is quite advanced on regulation. So it can try to leverage some kind of regulation in order to allow some presence of foreign actors, but preventing that some presence translates into a complete dependence, for example, reducing the possibility of transferring data abroad, or let's say having some stronger regulation in this respect. Second of all, we have some experiences in terms of industrial policy. I think that the Airbus experience. So, for example, building a state-owned pan-European company providing some crucial services like cloud services, at least to a certain respect, could be a first step, a very ambitious one, a true discontinuity in terms of industrial policy. We have also to acknowledge that, however, Europe is still trapped in most of its fallacies and flaws. We still not have a common budget. We still have crazy rules of industrial policy that are self-defeating and that are one of the major causes of why we are so in trouble right now. So the first thing to do is acknowledging the fact that Europe is still in big troubles due to most of these malfunctioning economic policy setup that we still have. However, and third point, cooperation, and also cooperation with China, because Europe is in the position, given also the kind of posture that now the US have, to, in a way, try to be a more cooperative and, let's say, not pro-conflict actor from a geopolitical viewpoint, and so perhaps trying to, let's say, build alliances worldwide and exploit, let's say, the cooperation that can be, to a certain extent, exploited. For sure, this is not easy, and it is not granted that Europe will be able, apart from the announcements, to reach what is called digital sovereignty, whatever it means.
All right, I see Hannes's hand, but we've got a question in the chat I want to do first. Ronald Cato from Uganda. Did you want to unmute yourself and ask a question? Or I can ask the question.
Yes, yes.
Oh, there you are. Yes, excellent.
Yeah,
Pick one to
thank
ask
you, Susan.
first.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. My concern was we are seeing the growth of these technologies. However, my analysis is on the impact of this. You could believe that it is going to have to create some chaos in the future, in that the low and middle income status countries are going to have to become testing grounds, or even some have already begun. So what do these countries really have to do? And also in regards to the digital sovereignty of these countries as well. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, this is, thank you very much. This is another very important question. The literature has shown how, in fact, by entering into many global south countries and becoming monopolists in providing digital services and infrastructures, the big tech, US-based big tech, but I think also Chinese one in other countries, basically give rise to a sort of digital colonialism, and to a certain extent also strengthen the position of their own government in the, let's say, geopolitical relationship and diplomatic relationship vis-a-vis this country, by becoming so crucial in providing also, let's say, public services to many respects. Of course, again, the position of global south countries is very difficult, also because these countries are the places where, for example, we have also the so-called click workers and all the workers that are employed by large platforms to train algorithms, and often in conditions which are terrible concerning labor conditions, etc. And of course, resistance to this kind of dynamics is very important, but is also very difficult in many respects. I think that this should be a global challenge, a global struggle, so to say, and individual countries alone, in particular countries which lag behind from a technological and economic viewpoint, have, let's say, few tools in order to counteract such a strong power. I think that, just to say a word, that as citizens and as individuals, we have also to acknowledge that the way we use digital technologies and the fact that we accept the broad commodification of our lives in many realms, from a private and individual one to a more professional one, is something that allows, in a way, indirectly, the power of this corporation and such a privatized and now also militarized setup to keep growing, and also to keep making the contradictions and the risks that we are facing more dangerous. So not easy answers to the clear questions about what to do about this technological dependency. However, I think that discussions of this kind are crucial, at least to start building awareness and to think about it in a more concrete way.
Excellent. Hannes.
First of all, thanks for your excellent presentation, Dario. And it sheds light on something we have not discussed up to now in this detail, and knowing and looking at this power of this military complex, industrial complex. And it also shows very, very well how these two parts, the IT part, the big tech, and the military complex, are somehow related to each other and also dependent on each other. And I would like to follow up on George's question, because it's somehow, when we look at the, let's say, the ongoing militarization in Europe at the moment, where we are increasing the budget and the expenditures in military areas, and being at the same time dependent on the US big tech companies in this area, doesn't this make this big tech even stronger in this moment? We see it already. And in that sense, making us even more dependent in Europe on those big tech providing this technology. We see it already with Starlink, those different AI applications. So is militarization maybe the wrong strategy to being more independent from the US big tech, taking, let's say, a rather provocative position in this current discussion?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, because I think that another part of the, so to say, progressive solution of the scary things that we discussed is thinking about a more pro-human beings digital technologies, another way of thinking, designing, developing, using digital technologies. And for sure, militarization is a way that strengthens the same mechanism that make these monopolies so powerful, surveillance capitalism a reality, the let's say advertisement and all the stuff that platforms and social media platforms do also from a, let's say, commercial and economic viewpoint. And on the other end, the connection with the military, and also the connection, let's say, I agree with you in the sense that both in terms of in the short run, militarization, rearmament, and the idea that we have to buy more and more weapons is just a way to fuel further the military digital complex, but is also something that conceptually is completely at odds with the discussion that we should make about repoliticizing the digital domain in a way that is for citizens, for human beings, for safeguarding the environment, and not for making war and strengthening the economic power of these monopolies.
Okay, I think we have time for one quick question. Carlo beat out Tom. So depending on how fast the answer is, we might fit Tom's in as well, but it might be just Carlo.
Okay, maybe the answer is not going to be short. The question is, how, this militarization of digital technologies is going to affect universities. You haven't mentioned universities in your talk, but it will be they will be affected in terms of research, in particular, and in particular, I'm thinking about Europe, where militarization of research hasn't been so deeply involved in university research, but it may become more and more in the future. So what is your take on this? Is it going to happen? What do you think? And and what should people working in university care about in this repositioning of universities in this in this new framework?
Yeah, many thanks, Carlo, for this question. Various points and levels. Yeah, for sure. I think, first of all, there is, for example, the studies by Cecilia Ricap and Benake Lundvall showing how much big tech in general are involved and, let's say, driving lots of research in IT related domain. And this is on top of the growing involvement of military activities and priorities in university research, which of course in countries like Italy is less relevant as it can be in the US, but still in many important, let's say, scientific and disciplinary domain is growing substantially, as we know, for example, with Leonardo participating in many research activities with the Politecnico of Milan or of Turin. Second of all, the role of big tech also, for example, in managing our digital infrastructures, the way how superficially we discuss whether to use certain private technologies also in our teaching activities, it testifies how poorly aware and conscious about the political implications of such, let's say, technologies and in general of such developments, also and in particular concerning what happens within universities. So I completely agree with you about the need of more awareness and attention on this and the risk that the militarization of research will affect substantially and growingly universities. And on top of that, also the fact that the digitalization of research and of teaching and the role of big tech and its implication should be discussed, interpreted, also taking into account how big tech are involved within the military digital complex. And just one comment on the comment in the chat by Cisl, who correctly highlights that the European defense spending goes very much towards traditional military suppliers. That's for sure true, and also to European companies, which are very important also on a global scale. However, don't, let's say, take into consideration the fact that there is now more and more a digital dependency relationship also between traditional arms procurers and also between, for example, automotive producers and the big tech, because the digital components of weapons and of arms systems more in general are more and more important. So in a way, even if lots of resources are going to RTX, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing, and I agree on this, indirectly, the strengthening of the military digital complex is in any case happening. So, I mean, this in a way reinforce what we were saying.
And unfortunately, we have to leave that there for reasons of time. But I want to thank you very, very much, Dario, for a very interesting conversation. And I think Stefan has a short announcement, and then we'll get to hear the piece of music that you selected.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and then sorry for the, let's say, technological problems that we had at the beginning, but it has been
no
great.
worries, Dario. Thanks a lot for your excellent talk. Let me just announce and invite all participants to our new series, which we will start next Tuesday, same time, same station, Polis Digitalis, where we want to bring together policymakers, journalists, and academics to discuss the most recent actual or foreseen developments of policy decision for the digital sphere. And the idea is to move away a bit from the academic talks, but have more interview style, more an interview style format. So let's see how this works out. And next Tuesday, we will have Brando Benify, a member of the European Parliament. And he has served as co-rapporteur of the EU AI Act and is now chairing the European Parliament's delegation for relations with the US. And he will be interviewed by Janis Brühl, a very well-known German journalist who works for the Süddeutsche Zeitung. And we are looking very much forward to this first edition of our series Polis Digitalis, and I hope you will all join us for this event. And now I hand over to Peter Knies, for our final music piece.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, Stefan. And also thanks to Dario, and thanks to Susan. And the song that Dario has picked is actually a very topical song from 1965. I Ain't Marching Anymore by Phil Ochs. This is very much a classical protest folk song, and the lyrics say it all, so there's nothing to add from my side. I just keep my fingers crossed that the connection remains stable while I play it. I have one more event to announce that I already announced the last time, that is going to take place on February 24th. Saeed Chaudhry of Carnegie Mellon Libraries will speak on the imperative of openness in AI, and it's going to be moderated by Hagar Novotny. So again, thanks to Dario, Susan, and all of you for joining. And let's end with a historic and still current message by Phil Ochs. See you soon and have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Oh, I marched to the Battle of New Orleans at the end of the early British wars. The young land started growing, the young blood started flowing, but I ain't a-marching anymore. For I killed my share of Injuns in 1,000 different fights. I was there at the Little Big Horn. I heard many men a-lying, I saw many more a-dying, but I ain't a-marching anymore. It's always the old to lead us to the wars, always the young to fall. Now look at all we've won with the saber and the gun. Tell me, is it worth it all? For I stole California from the Mexican land, fought in the bloody Civil War. Yes, I even killed my brothers and so many others, but I ain't a-marching anymore. For I marched to the battles of the German trench in a war that was bound to end all wars. Oh, I must have killed 1 million men and now they want me back again, but I ain't a-marching anymore. It's always the old to lead us to the wars, always the young to fall. Now look at all we've won with the saber and the gun. Tell me, is it worth it all? For I flew the final mission in the Japanese skies, set off the mighty mushroom roar. When I saw the cities burning, I knew that I was learning that I ain't a-marching anymore. Now the labor leaders screaming when they close a missile plant. United Fruit screams at the Cuban shore. Call it peace or call it treason, call it love or call it reason, but I ain't a-marching anymore. No, I ain't a-marching anymore.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye bye. Thank you.